Yes, guys, welcome to Chasing Green Arrows. We're back. It's Tuesday. We're going to look back on the game week just gone, but more importantly, look ahead to the game week ready and waiting for us. We are joined by first our regular co-host, Mr. Dean Jones. Dean, how are you, mate?
Hello, mate. I'm very good, thank you. I tell you what, I was a bit relieved, mate. Obviously, I've decided not to get on the Saka train, haven't I? And that wasn't an enjoyable watch yesterday. That wasn't enjoyable. That was a bit silly of me. But yeah, I got away with it. I was so happy when he came off. So happy.
Yeah, and it is just a little bit of illness by the looks of it, so he'll be fine for next week. And also joined by Fantasy Football Scout and the Wires, Pras. Pras, how are you, mate? Lovely to have you back on the show. It's been a while.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me on. Doing very well and good chatting with you guys again. And like you mentioned, I've been on Chasing Green Arrows well before and really enjoyed it. So happy to be back.
Good stuff. FPL Chai says, hello. So do FPL Down Under, loads excited. British 87, Praz is here, great. Praz the Goats is Getty FPL. Chai, we have upgraded you, I'm afraid, my friend, but we would love to have you back for next week or the week beyond, and you'll never be upgraded in real life. You are our top 150 ranked manager out there, and Chai is having a great season. Make sure you go check out FPL Chai in the chat on YouTube. Where do we get started? I guess let's talk a little bit about last night. Dean, you mentioned Saka. I saw the team news, as you do. I was tired, and I was like, I'm gonna watch a bit of TV that's not the football and then go to bed early. So I woke up this morning with the great news of when I first headline on BBC Sport was 6-0 Arsenal. And I thought, oh my God, I do not want to see how many goals Saka got of those 6, knowing I didn't captain him. His EO was over 100. When I saw 2 assists in 45 minutes, I was a no Saliba involvement. I only own Gabriel. I was pretty happy with that. But what did you make of Arsenal in general, Dean? Like, we were speaking a lot about Odegaard, Havertz, doubling up on the Arsenal attack. I mean, they are scoring goals for fun, but it was little old Sheffield United.
It's little old Sheffield United. I mean, they are the whipping boys of this league. They've been humiliated here. But Arsenal were different class. I mean, what they did to them in the first 15 minutes was almost unprecedented, to be honest. Like, it was relentless, and their movements, the way they were shifting Sheffield United out of positions and opening up gaps for them to exploit was as good as you'll see, as good as Man City are capable of, to be honest. And to be 5-0 up at half time is quite ludicrous, to be honest. But yeah, I was obviously relieved when Saka went off early, and also relieved that they didn't add too much to that scoreline. The problem with Arsenal is they just don't have a solid goal source. They share them around. And that's what makes picking assets for Arsenal so tricky. And that's why I've only got Gabriel at the moment, because I know what I'm getting at Gabriel. And elsewhere, I'm always scared of being on the wrong one. Like, I keep getting tempted to go for Odegaard and just stay there because I've got some catching up to do. And he's the one that nobody seems to be picking right now. But so when he scored, I was like, okay, great. But still, I don't know that I would necessarily go there. But they were brilliant, mate. I don't know how you split these 3 teams in terms of the title race, because they all deserve to win the league. I still think Man City are the best team. I still think even with this weekend, when you assess the 3 wins and the manner of them, they're all so different, right? Like, Arsenal go and hand out an absolute pummeling. Liverpool score a 99th minute winner, which is gritty and determined. But Man City go and win a Manchester derby. They come from behind to do it, but they absolutely dominate that fixture too. And for me, it's still Man City. It's still Man City. Their next 2 games are Liverpool and Arsenal, so that can turn around. Both those teams could shift it. I don't know what assets we need, mate. I mean, this is where you two are going to come into your own, because I don't know over the course of those 2 games which players we need.
Well, let's break down those 3 teams. Let's run a poll in the chat. Who's going to win the league between the big 3? Praz, I'll come to you. Before we look at the individuals and who we think we'll own for the final 10 weeks of the season, what's your top line thoughts of who does win the league?
Look, I think the boring answer is Man City, right? They know they've done it. They end the season really well. They're solid defensively. They're good in attack. They've got all their players back. So it's the boring answer. Not a lot of us want, as neutrals, for City to keep winning every single year. But look, I think Arsenal and, well, Liverpool and especially Arsenal will need a little bit of luck, which basically involves a couple of upsets for Man City. But I just think that they have too much.
FPL assets from the three teams feels relatively easy with some teams and controversial with others. Let's assume for the run-in, guys, we're all going to have triple Arsenal, like double Arsenal defence, or forget the run-in from now. Double Arsenal defence, again, like last night just shows that that's so elite. That's such a good team to be invested in. Gabriel Saliba's a duo. Pras, you've got both, right?
I've had both for 12
for a
weeks
long time.
Yeah.
I really, that's where I've fallen short this season. I've not ever owned Saliba, including game week 1. So yeah, I hope to be able to get to both plus Saka. I think when we look at Liverpool, it will all be around, do we have Mo Salah? Absolutely yes. Plus maybe a Darwin at times or a Jota at times if and when fit. Maybe a Trent at times when he's back. But it's just pretty much triple Arsenal, Mo Salah, Haaland, yes. But what about Foden, Pras? Because when we look at wildcards this week, I've put together a draft which gets me to a wildcard this week, gets me to Salah and Son and Saka and Watkins by 30-31. But there's no space for Foden, which is a scary thought, selling him.
Yeah, look, I think he's proven a lot of people wrong. I mean, people like you, LR, others have been fans for a long time. But I think for some of us, we were still skeptical about minutes, about his positioning. But clearly he's shown that he is as central to the whole thing, even more so than KDB, even more so than Alvarez, which has been a revolution in terms of his how central he is to the team. So I think, look, if you're looking for a second City attacker, midfield is prime real estate, right? We're talking like Southwest London. You have to pick what you want, right? And so you can make a case for so many good midfielders that you can say, would you have Maddison versus Foden versus Palmer versus Saka versus, there's so many. And therefore you can pick and choose them. So I don't think in that position you can say I want Foden for the rest of the season. You can say I maybe want Maddison because he plays in 29. He has a good fixture, plays Luton in 30. Then I can switch Maddison on to Foden. So I can see a little bit of movement like that. But I do think Foden is the second best City asset.
Yeah, Maddison was my pick on wildcard this week. I'm not wildcarding, but if I was, Maddison is in and Foden's not. But just as Praz says, like there's a shift there, perhaps after the free hit or after 30. I think 30 Spurs have Luton, and then maybe your Son can become Salah, your Maddison can become Foden. Guys, do hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We're going to talk chip strategy. We're going to see our teams. We're going to talk bonus beasts. Dean, any other big highlights from the weekend just gone in terms of teams? We need to talk a little bit about Fulham. They're not often that relevant, but as a season ticket holder at Fulham, and because Fulham playing game week 29, for those navigating 29 without a free hit, they might consider a Fulham purchase. And for those free hitting in 29, we're definitely going to be talking Fulham. Like, it's not the easiest of fixtures, but it's Spurs. It's at the Cottage. You'll be there, Dean. Both Muniz and Wilson catching the eye over the weekend.
Yeah, really, really strange that these two are catching the eye, to be honest. I mean, Harry Wilson was having a bad time of it. And then I can remember in the Liverpool semi-final at home, Harry Wilson had come on as sub and he tried to flick on the edge of the box. And I was like, I've had enough of him. Just get rid of him. Like he is not what he's supposed to be anymore. I don't know what's happened to Harry Wilson. Anyway, from that point on, he went on to have put on probably the best 25 minutes he's ever turned on in a Fulham shirt. And I was made to look stupid. And ever since that moment, Harry Wilson has come again and he's been brilliant. And he's also got this link up now with Muniz, who again, this was unseen. Even Rodrigo Muniz did not realize he had this in his locker. Mate, this is these performances over the past 5 starts is so far from anything I'd ever seen from him. It's incredible. Like
nobody Diego Costa. Like
nobody can work it out, mate. Nobody. It's like people laugh. Like people on the ground are like laughing when he scores because it's like, how has this happened? Like we literally got Armando Broja from Chelsea, who is supposed to be a £50 million footballer. We were supposed to play him, and if we'd have played him every week, he was going to cost us 500 grand, right?
Just as a loan fee, right?
Yeah, as the loan fee for the season. But if he doesn't play 10 games, I think, then we have to pay 4 million. And he's not gonna. We're going to pay the money. We're going to pay the 4 million because he can't start.
Because of Muniz.
Because Muniz is
Wow.
blocking him out. So Brozier's supposed to be the £50 million footballer, and his value is dropping by the week because he's stuck behind the Brazilian, who was worth about 4 million himself a month or so ago, and is now worth about 25-30 million pounds. It's an extraordinary turnaround. But Muniz is interesting, mate.
4.5 million.
At 4.5 million, why not as your third striker, to be honest?
Spurs in that game week 29 fixture at the Cottage is a fixture I see at
goals,
goals, right? Both sides.
Yeah, both teams to score is obviously what you would look for in that fixture. Fulham, we have a good record for rattling bigger teams. We've beaten Arsenal at the start of the year. Tottenham will come. There'll be no fear about it. Marco Silva might be too good for us, to be honest, as a manager. Like he's that good. He's so good tactically, and we could beat Tottenham. At the very least, I would expect us to score, and a Wilson cross Muniz header might well be the combination that does it.
And another team, I guess we have to talk about, a kind of around mid-table team. This is more for this week, Pras, is Bournemouth.
Yep.
Senesi owner's unfortunate. He doesn't play 90 every week. He has missed a few games with injury, and buying him was not only the risk because of the 8 yellow cards, but also he's not always a 90-minute man like Zabani, who fortunately I bought, and I was between the two, and it was a bit of a coin toss, and I went with the guy that doesn't miss a minute. But outside of that, Neto is a very good pickup this week. Solanke, of course. Semenyo, it's frustrating that he's a forward and we're tight on spots. But midfield is where many want to go because they look at Sheffield United and they look at Luton and go, we're going to score goals. But who do you pick? Kluivert, Tavernier, neither. I'm not sold on either, but I kind of want to have that bit of fun there.
See, I think it's a difficult one and no one knows the answer. So firstly, shout out to FPL Schofield on Twitter, who's a Bournemouth fan, who also happens to be an international cricketer who plays for Scotland, without revealing his full identity, because obviously he chooses not to on Twitter.
Can't be that hard from there.
Hey, did you see the catch, Praz? The catch in the summer?
Of course I did. Of course. So he has got a fantastic thread on basically all Bournemouth options. But I think you summarized it well in the sense of at least one defender in Solanke is the bare minimum, right? So if you don't have one, Zabani is great, Neto is great. And then you go from there in terms of where is the weak point in your team. So if you're not free hitting, then maybe you just avoid and you get a Luton midfielder or another Luton player instead who also play in 29. If you are free hitting in 29, then Bournemouth become more interesting because Bournemouth have good fixtures around 29, even though they blank in 29. So they have this fantastic double coming out of it. They play Everton. So Everton at home. So a lot of good home fixtures that you can basically hold for a while. So this is why I particularly like both Zabani and Neto, because you have like a keeper who's fixed, you've got a defender who's fixed, and there's an offside chance of a small chance of them getting a double in 34 as well. So you're basically set with your Bournemouth if you're looking to free hit in 29. But coming to your midfielders question, I think Tavernier is the only one who Schofield thinks has a chance for both. He's not nailed. And even if he plays, he doesn't play 90, or he won't play 90 because Sinisterra is there. You have Semenyo, you have, Kluivert plays through the middle, but there's other options in that position. And Kluivert is also interesting. He plays as number 10, but again, he may not because who's that? Adam Smith or Alex Scott?
Scott.
Scott. He would play one of the games. So that's what he predicts. So you're getting 110 minutes from a Bournemouth midfielder, and you're selling Foden, who's playing 90 minutes. It just doesn't sit right, is basically my issue.
Oh, it's so tough. So Scott came on for the second half because Christie went off, and Scott played in that kind of number 8 role alongside Kluivert, and it did work. And the manager Iraola said post-match we needed Scott's legs, but it was alongside Kluivert. And I think we're going to get 2 Kluivert starts, but Kluivert he always comes off around the hour mark. Even when he's having a good game, he comes off at 70. So even if you get 140 minutes, it's still not the 180 you're going to get from a defender. But Kluivert does come with a bit more goal threat than Tavernier. He's got 4 goals versus Tavernier's 2. He plays as the number 10, and he's also $1 million cheaper-ish. He's around 4.5. And if you're like me and you're free hitting in 29, getting a 4.5 Kluivert might just then allow you to go Son Salah in 31, which is the route many will need to take that aren't on a wild card to match wild card teams for 30-31. Dean, what's your take of those Bournemouth attacking mids. Annoyingly, Semenyo is listed as a forward. If Semenyo was a 4.5 mid, he'd be in everyone's team this week. But he's the only one that feels absolutely nailed. And Kluivert and Tavernier, yeah, they should start 2-2, but there's a chance they don't. And even when they do, they get hooked early.
Yeah, the fear factor on minutes is obviously right there. I liked the way that Kluivert took his goal a lot.
One of his best games, I think, in a Bournemouth shirt against Burnley.
That's the problem, because is that going to become something that's reflected again, or was it a one-off? And that's where the struggle comes with Kluivert. At 4.6,
never been consistent, has he? Never
against
over his
these
career.
two teams, should be able to trust it a little bit more than you actually can.
Yeah.
I guess it depends what your situation is here. Are you trying to stabilize? Are you chasing? What are you actually looking for from this Bournemouth pick? Are you just looking to make sure that you don't lose ground on people, or is this your opportunity to make up ground? If you're looking to make up ground, like I would be right now, like I would be tempted by Kluivert because I've kind of got nothing to lose in this game right now. I might as well go a little bit different. But if you're not, if you're to cement your place in either the top 1,000 or the top 100,000, whatever your aim is, then you probably don't bother going there, because it is a risk factor. And the guy that you've already got in your team, as Pras says, might not be that many minutes behind. It can probably match his output.
It's such a tough one. Go on, Pras.
So one thing on Kluivert, I think you made the excellent point that if he affords you a Salah in 30-31 and you can have a team around that, I think that's reason enough, right? But just to manage expectations on Kluivert, so this season, if you take all the minutes and all the goals, he basically has a minutes per XG of 355, which basically means that you could have him play 90 minutes across 4 games and he'd score 1 goal.
Yeah.
That's your expectations, right? So you're basically saying, I'm hoping to get not lucky, massively lucky. So if he scores 1 goal, you've basically called heads correctly over the double. And that's if he plays 90 each. So I'm just putting into context that we go for these doubles, they get minutes. You have to sort of think, how many minutes will I get? And will Foden actually create more XG in his 80, 90 minutes compared to 150 minutes from the player I'm getting? I'm using Foden as an example.
It's a good example, Foden.
Or
it's a good
Palmer
example
or somebody.
Yeah. It's a great example, because if you buy a Bournemouth mid, it might mean you're benching a Foden or even a De Bruyne if you own him. And that's, I mean, I guess the only playing devil's advocate to that is he hasn't always played against Sheffield United and Luton backlines, and they are really on the ropes. I can't remember a set of 3 teams in the Premier League that have given up goals as much in terms of newly promoted teams than Sheffield United, Luton and Burnley. Like, this is a season where we get to target fixtures more than any other.
Yeah.
It's a tough one, but you go to players like Neto, who rotate really well with Areola in terms of fixtures, and you go, okay, I get a set and forget keeper with a double. I can play him in 30-31 when Areola's got tricky fixtures, I think it is. So Neto is definitely big on my radar this week too. It's for me, I'll be buying a third Bournemouth, and it's, do I buy a Kluivert or an Areola? I'm still not 100%.
Neto, you mean? Yeah.
Sorry, a Neto, yeah. Let's have a look at the fixture ticker and just talk loosely. Guys, please do hit that like button today and subscribe to the channel. This ticker's from Ben, and I think he said it last week, so ignore the 27 fixtures. But just so we can get kind of top line what chip strategy everyone is on, let's just discuss that. And guys, we'll do a poll as well. There are 3 main chip strategies. Let me just walk you through them very quickly. Chip strategy, there's more than 3, but there's 3 obvious ones. One is to wildcard now for 28, and then you free hit and bench boost in the doubles of 34 and 7. Another one is to dead end your team in 29 and wildcard out of it in 30-31. You then free hitting or bench boosting again in the doubles. And the other one is strategy 3, which I am on, which is to free hit in 29. I then dead end my team in 34, wildcard in 35, and bench boost in 37. There's loads of pros and cons of each. We're not going to tell you which one to do, but from those 3, I really want to know what you guys are doing and which is the most popular. I think it will be between my strategy and probably yours, Pras, because I think I'm right in saying, Pras, you're looking to wildcard 30-31, right?
I was until Richarlison and Pau Torres have gotten injured
over
the last week, because I think you and I spoke a week ago, and that was my plan.
Yeah.
And then, of course, because I had 6 players and 3 transfers, and I could have got 11 by taking a couple of hits, basically got triple Luton this week and put out 11. Problem is, now I've got Richarlison, Pau Torres, Trippier. I don't know what his situation is, even though he's obviously not playing in 29. But
Yeah.
my team does look like, if I free hit, it may be better positioned. But I will wildcard in 36, not 35. And 36 versus 35, we can come to later because it's a little bit of a detail. But at the moment, if Richarlison is fit, I still might save the free hit and free hit in 34 instead. So this is what it comes down to, basically, that one extra player or 4 extra points that you take in a hit. But I'm actually at the moment just fairly open. But this is the week where I will decide whether I get triple Luton or double Bournemouth, which will basically put me in one path or the other.
Yeah. Dean, what do you make of this planner with a lot of doubles suggested in 37? Like, we're going to see a huge amount of additional fixtures, and in 34, a good handful of additionals with maybe a few extra doubles sprinkled around in between.
Yeah. So I'm definitely going to have to free hit 29 because it's just like unavoidable, to be honest. So that my hand will be forced there, really. And then obviously there's still the bench boost for me to go with, and I've been weighing up that against wildcard on where to go. I haven't committed, mate. I mean, I know that you put in a lot of hours into when you're going to commit and where you're going to lean. I'm just going to get nearer to that 34 and see where we're at, because like there's so many little factors that are still going to come into play here with like Europe and stuff and fixtures and injuries that are undoubtedly going to crop up.
Yeah.
There's
a ton, and the teams that double in 34 aren't going to be the sexiest of teams. So they're ones that you can buy for 34 and then sell on a wild card in 35, 36. I mean, Pras mentions a 36 wild card versus 35, and Pras, that's because the teams that double in 34 have good fixtures in 35, right? And then if you're wild carding in 36, you're just going, I'm picking players for the last 3-4 weeks
for the bench boost as well.
Yeah, I honestly think I'll leave my wild card until 36 and just take that go for it those last few games when, look, I mean, obviously, like in your more casual leagues that we're all in as well, like people have probably used their chips by then, because I've seen like so many people already use the free hit and stuff in mine and just waste them on weeks when they probably didn't realize that they didn't need to be doing that in that week. And now, like we've talked across this season how frustrating it's been that you could be a casual player in this game and not pay any attention to the data that you guys pour over every single week. Me less so, but obviously I hear about it when we're on here and I look at other streams and stuff, and then I see the analysis that's going into it. And until 34, I think you get away with it. And I think that this is the time when all of that knowledge that you've built up throughout the course of the season actually pays off, and you can get some big hits across those last 4 game weeks. And yeah, I just feel like your elite level might not change too much because you're all going to have a similar thinking. But in your other leagues that you're trying to win, I think there's great scope here to do it if you time that wild card right.
Yeah. Pras, what do you make of the kind of 36 wildcard, playing it so close to bench boost? For me, free hit 29 or free hit 34 came down to not just how many players I can get in 29, but when do I feel like my team will be most in need of a wildcard? Wildcard's the most valuable chip. And for me, wildcard is played for my team. It's not something I want to rip up and start again in game week 30. I don't have enough changes to make. In 35, 36, one, I think I'll have enough changes to make. But 2, it allows me then to make sure my bench boost is completely optimal because they're played so closely together. I'm not then worrying about players getting injured in between or losing their starting spot or being invested in teams that are playing poorly. I can just go and make sure in a week's time, I know those 15 players will all be playing twice, for example.
Yeah, I think you maximize the bench boost for sure. But I think the counter argument would be you by delaying the wild card, you're losing points leading up to that. So I think it's so team dependent. Where if your team, when you look at it right now, how set up is it for 29? Can you save the wild card, the free hit or not? If you can save the free hit, I think you're almost forced to wild card out of it because you will have a bad team. I think people who are free hitting in 29 will have a good team. So I mean, if I look at my team at the moment, if I wildcarded in 31, this is the team I want. I mean, I just need to add Salah to this team.
Yeah.
And I can figure out a path, whether it's getting the Cliverts or getting a downgrade of a player, or maybe even Son to Salah in 31. These are all routes that I've looked at. Then I would keep Foden, I'd keep Saka, I'd keep Palmer, I'd keep Haaland, I'd keep Solanke. Watkins could become a Darwin. So there are paths where if I can find that route, then I think it's just fine. You don't have to wildcard for the sake of it. But other teams may not be in that position. They may have 3 injured defenders and may not have, Palmer and Son, for example. And then they think, wildcard is needed.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you, Pras, for that overview. Off court, thank you for the super chat. It looks like it's working fine. I think maybe there was a question about members. We don't have members. So if you're wondering why you can't be one, that's because it's not an option. But if you do want to support the channel, simple likes and subscribes is all we ask. But thank you, Off court, as always.
I like just a quick one. Marco's put in the question: is Solanke triple captain worthy? What do you guys reckon? What was your? I mean, surely it has to be consideration if you got it.
Yeah, question marks just over the knock he's got, and can he play 180 minutes over the double? But I think he looked still sharpish against Burnley. Like, he didn't look bad. He played. What do you think, Praz? If you still got triple captain?
It comes down to your other chips. So basically, a lot of people will look to use a bench boost in either 34, 37, may use a free hit in one of those weeks. So if you're not one of those, yes, 34 will be a double, 37 will be a double. But I think this is as good as it gets, given the 2 fixtures, right? I mean, I don't think you need to have this team bias that I need to captain a Solanke or a Salah or a Haaland. I don't think you need to have the team bias. It's the fixtures, and 2 home fixtures, player on penalty is going to play 90 minutes in both. I think you go for it.
Yeah. If you have used your bench boost, or you're not planning on using a chip in 37, just look at this ticker straight away. You go, who does Haaland play? Well, he'll play Fulham, and then a double of very likely Fulham, and then either Tottenham or Brighton. But both are away games. But that is great if you have used the chips. But as Praz says, think about the other chips you may have used. I like Solanke in 28 for sure, and I like those fixtures for goals. Remember, we have seen Bournemouth versus Luton already this season. It was the game Lockyer went down in when it was postponed. I think they were 2-0 up at the time, and Solanke, was he on a brace or one goal, 1 assist? I can't remember. Was it a 10-pointer?
Just one goal. 1 goal, 3
bonus.
Goal,
but 3 bonus. Oh yeah, it was the bonus. That was the big bit. The bonus was the big talking point that week. What might happen? Look, let's have a quick look at some of the bonus beasts from the weekend just gone. And then most importantly, we're going to have a look at how we got on and what our plans were for all 3 of our teams. So I think we can show you some of the bonus beasts to date. Here we go. I, every week, just put out a couple of players, Praz, who got 3 bonus. We look at some of their numbers. Because Foden is so topical, because many on wildcard will be going without him, just wanted to look at 1, how good he's been, and 2, how risky it is maybe to sell him. Obviously lucked out in the bonus with 2 goals. You'd expect that. Didn't clock any assists, but had high XG. Remember, it was his cushioned header, I think it was, to Haaland, who missed that massive chance. We can see from the average position map, he's been everywhere. And again, he moved positions during the game. Praz, the fixtures read Liverpool, blank Arsenal. These are still fixtures. Certainly the Liverpool game where City can clock a few goals, right?
I think so. I mean, if you just look at it statistically, I think City are favourites in both games. Maybe the Liverpool one, it could be closer. But they're home against Arsenal. They always have Arsenal's number. Even though it's a low-scoring game, I think you'd expect them to score a couple of goals in both those fixtures. Now, does he have that high ceiling that he does in a Man United fixture or a Brentford fixture where he got the hat-trick? Maybe not. But like I said, you can swerve him. But actually, the scary part is what happens after Arsenal. After 30, his fixtures are Villa home, Crystal Palace away, Luton home, Spurs away, Forest away, Wolves home, Fulham away, West Ham home and Brighton away. All green, all amazing. And you just want to have that second attacker. So question is, do you want to lose him, get him back? Do you want to lose him and say goodbye? Or do you want to hold on to him? Yeah.
Dean, what's your plan? I mean, 116 touches, 79 accurate passes. Like, this guy has become the heartbeat of the City team in a way. Like, alongside Rodri, everything is going through Rodri Foden.
Yeah. The problem is, like, he won't be that guy every week.
No.
Kind of like how Praz alludes. And, like, for example, I've got De Bruyne in my team at the moment, and on form, you're thinking, I'm on the wrong horse. I should be I need Foden in my team, not De Bruyne. The second I make that switch, De Bruyne is going to be the guy that suddenly takes the next 2 games by the scruff of the neck, decides one with that outlandish pass that tees up the winner, and then scores 2 goals that see off the other game. That's the problem. I don't know where you stick your trust in terms of Foden versus De Bruyne across the rest of this season, because obviously the Pep Roulette thing, Foden won't be rotated like he has been in the past, obviously, but still come out of games at times. Oh, I don't know, man. I don't know if I stay off Foden and just hope for the best is probably what I'm going to do. But it feels like a massive, massive risk. He's playing so well. Like the way he hit that ball was just extraordinary. And he gets better and better, doesn't he? Do you know what I like about Foden is it's very un-English, but he's not fazed by anything. And he feels like this is his stage. When you get like Rashford or even Sterling to some degree was like this, like always felt like they had these expectations, this hype to live up to. And it was always like pent up in them that they had to deliver. And there was all these other headlines around them all the time and narratives that they had to fulfill. And with Foden, that's not really there. He kind of just like gets on with his life. He's never too high or too low. And it's like, because he's been a sensation since he was like 17, he's now in like his 6th year of senior football, being around these players and on this stage, that it all feels so natural to him. So, whereas typically it would be like, okay, Haaland, De Bruyne, those are the 2 guys that are going to decide your season. Somehow, the local lad from Stockport, Phil Foden, has made sure that he is in that conversation and given us all something to properly doubt ourselves over here. Because honestly, before that Manchester derby, I didn't think that I would be having second thoughts about having Kevin De Bruyne in my team for a Premier League run-in where Manchester City are chasing down a title. But he's niggling away at me in the back of my brain, thinking I'm making the wrong choice.
I've got both, and I'm still reluctant to sell even De Bruyne. I'm still obviously I'll be keeping Foden, but De Bruyne for Liverpool, I mean, De Bruyne number 17, we can see on this map, slightly blurred out. He's pretty much parked on the edge of the box. Central means shooting positions, and De Bruyne isn't scared to take a shot. I know he doesn't score many, but this season, since he's been back from his injury, De Bruyne has only played 1 position in this team. Historically, De Bruyne has played quarterback. He's played number 8, 10. He's been a lot deeper. He is playing alongside Haaland every time he plays. And we've seen the points rack up in the Champs. We've seen it in the FA Cup. We haven't seen it in the Premier League other than, was it the cameo against Newcastle? But Pras, against Liverpool, like this game could be 4-4 and De Bruyne gets a brace. He's a very dangerous sell, isn't he?
He's always a dangerous sell. I mean, this is actually true for all City players. It's just, once you get them, it's just you never say goodbye, because it's that the ceiling is so high for all of them. But I think, look, it comes down to price as well, right? I mean, De Bruyne's output is similar to Foden. I don't think there's any denying. And we need to remove the history. We need to remove the King De Bruyne. There is still the age factor. There's where he's playing in the team. Sometimes if Alvarez plays, then he's not playing the number 10. He did against Luton, and then you saw he got 5 assists, but he doesn't do that every game. So I just think if you're losing one for the funds, I think it's okay to lose De Bruyne over Foden, but I do get it. Yeah, he can score a brace any game. Of course he can.
Yeah, De Bruyne to Cliver might just be my move this week to allow for Salah. I can't believe that's a move. Let's have a look at a couple of the others. I think one of them was maybe Harry Wilson, which we won't spend a great deal on because we've done our Fulham loving already. But Dean, we spoke Moniz. Wilson, is he completely... I know he's not nailed when everyone's fit, right? But just tell us about, at the moment, with the injuries you've got and when these guys might be back, Willian, I don't know, is Wilson nailed for the double in game week 29? Sorry, for the game week in 29, the blank.
Not if Willian's back. No, I mean they're always very careful about timelines and giving too much away. And Willian obviously has come back into the team off the bench at the weekend, and that suggests to me that his spot will be under threat. The thing you've got at Fulham is Alex Iwobi has been brilliant across the course of this season, and Fulham are much worse when he's not playing. So Iwobi is a nailed-on starter on one side.
Baller.
And Willian is our other best attacker, and Harry Wilson has only been good for a month. Now, he has been very good, but also there's Bobby Reid, who people outside of Fulham won't realise, but Bobby Reid has a great impact on this team whenever he plays, and he will still be selected for games, and actually is quite often selected for big fixtures because of his work rate in terms of going backwards as well. So for game week 29, I wouldn't actually have that much trust on Harry Wilson starting that fixture as it stands right now, no.
Yeah, okay, good point. That's really good to know. Muniz, yes, but maybe we swerve Wilson.
Yeah, he will play. He'll definitely come into the game. But yeah, 90 minutes is definitely not a guarantee.
Thank you, British 87. That is very kind of you for the £10.
Very nice.
Really
Thanks,
appreciate
mate.
that. There's a beer with your name on it later. I'm
yeah,
actually
not
off
a
to the
few
pub
beers.
tonight.
You can't get a few for a tenner, can you, mate? We might get two if we're lucky.
Yeah, we need another tenner, British 87, if you wouldn't mind.
Tenner a pint, mate.
Thank you, mate. Yeah, I never go to the pub midweek, especially. I don't have any friends within 100 miles of my house, pretty much, other than one guy that I've met through football recently, who I'm meeting for a beer tonight. So
oh, football friends.
Literally, it's my only. Yeah, I've lived here 5 years. This is my first social outing with someone local, rather than a friend visiting me.
That's a big breakthrough.
I know, mate. I mean, I quite enjoyed the moving here and not having friends. I like that.
Did you?
But yeah. My friends are all online, mate. It's you guys.
Yeah, no, honestly, yeah. My mates live like within like 20 minutes, and I still don't see most of them most of the time. I just chat to them on WhatsApp all day.
Yeah, I'm very active also on WhatsApp. Timo Werner. I feel like no one's buying Timo Werner. Those on free hit might just want that 1 week love affair with Timo Werner, because if Richarlison is still injured in 29, and remember, we've been told 2 to 3 weeks, there's a chance he doesn't play versus Fulham away. I love Timo versus Fulham away just for the X vibes, and he will get chances. We can see his average position map, like most advanced man for Spurs. We expect it. Plenty of penalty area touches. Pras, what's your top line thoughts? We know he can't finish, but if he gets 5 chances, he'll score one of them.
Yeah, why not? I agree with you. I think game week 29 free hit punt is there. Because again, we're looking at strikers, right? After Tony and Watkins, there is a third slot if people wanted to go there. Of course, Muniz we talked about. But yeah, Werner as a striker affords a good midfield. Maybe he's your first sub, or if you want to get that player, maybe Morgan Gibbs-White is your first sub or something like that. But I can see people going for him, especially if Richarlison is out, because he does get at the end of chances. Does he miss them? Yeah, sometimes. But that's what we say about Darwin. That's what we say about Jackson. But it's actually good that players get at the end of chances. That's a much harder skill than actually finishing.
Yeah. When you saw Pras him through on goal for the 1-on-1, you just knew he was missing, didn't you?
Yeah, of course you did. Of course. But that's the confidence, right? He knew it as well. I mean, he knew that I might miss this, and that's why he does.
Yeah. In contrast, Dean, Son.
Yeah, I would say too that like one of the areas that players do have joy against Fulham quite often is that kind of channel that Werner appears into. Yeah, quite often. And I think the 2 times that Fulham have played Arsenal this season, like they've had they missed loads of chances between Saka and Martinelli, for example, and they both came in those sorts of areas where Werner looks to exploit and find space. Whether he can beat Bernd Leno is a different question, obviously, but he will get opportunity.
Like that. How will Fulham deal with Son, Dean? Like, Son playing number 9 is very different to Son playing wide, but your first choice centre backs at the minute, Bassey's back, isn't he?
Yeah, Bassey and Tosin will eat him up, mate. Like genuinely, like we've got a really good partnership here, and the problem obviously with Son is that he's not your typical number 9 because he's too tricky. He'll drop short and he'll spin and all these types of things. But yeah, Tosin Adarabioyo and Calvin Bassey are probably an underrated partnership in the wider world of football, and people probably don't realise just how limiting they can be to teams. Bassey was obviously missing for a while when he was over at the Africa Cup of Nations, and he was a massive miss to Fulham, a huge miss. But you know, Fulham typically, when those two are together, do look very strong. And it will at least give me some hope of snuffing out Son. Will he get
Bring
chance?
back Tim Ream. Then I can go Werner and Son
If
double
Tim
up.
Ream was playing, mate, I'd be like triple captain him if you want. Tim Ream's best day is probably behind him now. But if this duo's together, yeah, you never know. Never know.
Let's move our attention before we see our teams to Luton. Andrew asked about Barkley. Pras, Luton players for non-free hitters especially, I think are really important this week because it's double followed by an actual fixture. They never look like they're going to keep a clean sheet in a month of Sundays. Like I've got Bell on my bench. Even if he's fit, I won't be starting Bell in a double. Like he's got zero upside. I'm never going to get a goal or an assist, and I'm not getting clean sheet points. I'm just getting minutes and probably minus points for goals conceded. But outside of their defenders, Kaminsky in goal, Doughty as a defender with upside, but also there's options there in Morris, Barkley. How do you rank the Luton assets, and which ones do you think you're most interested in?
I think Doughty number one. Because again, forget about the fact he's a defender. I mean, if you get a clean sheet, happy days. But otherwise, he's also the best chance creator. So imagine if De Bruyne was a defender for a different team, not Man City. And then look, Morris is decent because he's on penalties, and especially he plays further forward if Adebayo is out, and he has been for the last couple of weeks. Now Adebayo has been posting on his Instagram a bit like Salah, the tease back soon, back soon. So we don't know when he's back, and if he's back, does it affect the fixture, especially the Nottingham Forest at home? That's the fixture you want for your attacker, because the way Luton's form is just not the same as the home form. So I would say Morris is a good second pick if Adebayo is out, but even without, he's on penalties, he's fine. And then it's much of a muchness between Kaminsky or Barkley. You're just hoping to get lucky a little bit.
What am I seeing from Linus? What am I seeing? Linus, I've pulled the trigger on Haaland to Morris.
I've seen a couple do that.
This is bravery defined. That is crazy.
It's a popular move, Dean. It's a popular move this week because people who are avoiding the free hit, they want to get the double for Morris. They want to get a game from Morris in 29 and then get Haaland back or something. But I agree, it's bold.
It's so bold. It's just when you see it in black and white that someone's actually done it. FPL Madridista said, would you recommend selling Haaland and Foden for Morris and Barkley for a hit?
Oh, God. Not Foden as well. Look, we can talk about selling Haaland for Morris, but we can't talk about selling Foden for Barkley. Not in front of me on this show.
Don't expose yourself like that.
I mean, look, the selling Haaland conversation is interesting. It does feel like if you're going to be buying him back, and you're going to be spending more money, by the way. I think he's 14.5 now, and you probably bought him for 14. Did he drop, Pras? Did he ever drop below 14?
He went to 13.9, I think.
Did he? Yeah. Oh, that was it. He only had the one drop, didn't he? Despite millions of sales.
Loads of people are saying they're doing Haaland to Morris. Loads are.
All right. Interesting. I haven't seen many of the sort of content creators or any make that move, but I've seen a fair few on Twitter say they're going to. Let's have a look at our teams and see what we're planning on doing. Who have we got first up? We'll see points this week, but then we'll also talk about, obviously, things moving forward. So we've got me, Dean, and Praz's teams to show you. We'll start and kick off with the Walton Rifles. Oh, Pascal Gross finally disappointed for you, Dean. I was happy about that, seeing him benched.
Mate, it was one thing picking a Brighton player anyway because he was playing against Fulham. Then to see him actually on the bench and Brighton playing so terribly, I'm like, bring him on. Like, Fulham already won this game. Just bring on Pascal Gross for a goal. They looked rubbish without him.
He's their best player.
I don't know if you saw the Fulham Brighton game at all, but De Zerbi literally had like one of those big scarves on, and he had like this kind of, I don't know if it was a hoodie or not, but he was like hiding his face in his jacket and like screaming and raging inside his jacket and his scarf while watching his team. Did like 3 or 4 times, like couldn't bear to watch them. So Pascal Gross isn't playing. It's a silly decision to.
Because he outscored his Stupinan.
Yeah, it was partly because he was watching his Stupinan. Yeah, his drop off's been huge, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Bradley, 8 points for Bradley's nice differential points, and Gordon, many sold him. So you've got some differential wins there. Like you're pretty well set. Hwang's out for 6 weeks. Porro should be back next. I guess Lascelles and Hwang are both sells for you though.
Yeah, Lascelles and Hwang are both sells, unless I change a goalkeeper to bring in Neto. which I'll just sell one of Huang or Lascelles, because I might bring in Neto and goal.
Because Zabani, couldn't you, for the sales? It's a nice move.
So yeah, possibly do that. I mean, I saw Porro saying, was it last week? He said, "If you owe me an FPL, don't sell me." He said that himself. So
on Insta,
I'm assuming since he did actually miss that game when he was telling people not to sell him, that he's back this week at the very least. Because otherwise, that's horrible advice he's dishing out. Mark says Dean's been trying to sell Lascelles since New Year's Day. Yeah, I feel like Man United trying to get rid of Casemiro here. It's like nobody wants him. I can't get rid of him. The right week just hasn't come along. It is time that Lascelles jogs on. That's for sure.
Good stuff. All right, there we go. Let's move on from Dean's to mine on Praz's team. It was good to see Dubravka getting a clean sheet for once. My team, I have Dubravka. That was nice. Areola's 13. Going to be honest, don't mind about that. Like, I was never really going to pick Areola, and I was always going to pick Dubravka. So don't be too. I saw loads of people moaning about Areola. If you genuinely thought about putting him in your team, you've got every right to be annoyed. If he was always going to be on your bench points are bench points, like whatever. Bell, 1 point. Yeah, he went off injured. I'm not hoping he starts in the double anyway. Bell will continue on my bench. I guess my big decision here, when you've got 8 good of forwards each week at the moment, it's which one to bench. Now, this is when you can moan about bench points, when you're actually considering starting that 8th attacker. You bench him and he goes and gets Foden's 20 points or whatever. So this week, I've got a real dilemma. Let's assume that I sell De Bruyne to Kluivert, or even if I don't, De Bruyne or Kluivert surely have to start. So which one do I bench? I mean, at the moment, Palmer at home to Newcastle or one of the Man City attackers. Pras, what's your take there? Like, it's a tough decision this week.
It's tough. I think it has to be the guy who's not on pens, because everybody else is on pens who you're getting, right? I mean, it's just the upside, right? I mean, Foden can do well, but like we said, maybe they score a couple. He needs to be involved in one or both or score one. He could. I just think Palmer home to Newcastle is way better, given how Newcastle have been defensively away from home, especially.
Yeah, although Newcastle finally keep a clean sheet. I know you own Trippier.
Yeah.
They did keep a clean sheet, but one, they were at home, but two, Dubravka was also fairly busy, wasn't he? Like, it didn't look like the composed, complete lockdown Newcastle defence we've seen in the past. They've not turned a corner because of one clean sheet, have they?
Absolutely. Far from it. I mean, look, maybe progress because they've got Willock back, who played in the middle. They are getting players back slowly. So maybe it helps, but look, this is a shadow of the team that we thought they were defensively in the beginning of the season.
Yeah. Dean, where I fall behind in terms of, like, as a content creator, you're competing with other content creators. So when I look at like Pras or Big Man's team, where my team's been weak, often is at the back, right? I've had players like Estupinan, whatever. I haven't had double Arsenal defence or a Man City defender, which many have of late. So I was delighted to see Zabani and Doherty not only cover, but outscore, say, a combination of Saliba and Ake. So quite happy with that one. But You're 2 pence worth on those guys moving forward, given the fact they've both got a double game week. Good picks right now, right?
They're still good picks, aren't they? Yeah, I mean, on both sides of the coin, I think you split on having one each of those on those 2 clubs is good. Doughty, like, chances of keeping a clean sheet are slim, but the upside is he gets involved in the attacks going forward, and across the 2 games, I think you get good output from him. He's been a real bit of a revelation this season. I'd say one of the players that we probably hadn't heard of at the start of the year that is probably on all of our radars now. And actually, if Luton did go down, you want someone to buy him to keep him in the league, because you know what you're getting next season, and you'd definitely be interested in keeping him around.
Yeah, good point. Stick him in, like, I don't know, Bournemouth team.
Villa.
Yeah. Villa have got 2 good left backs already.
Mate, no one loves signing a left back more than Aston Villa. We all know that.
It's the first thing Emery did when he came in. He was like, he had a 30 million left back in Dean, and he was like, I'm buying another one. So, really? Do you need
it's always linked with him.
Okay, let's have a look at Praz's team. Praz, I guess your well, let's look at your points first, but then also your decisions moving forward will centre a lot around Richarlison.
Yeah, so I got, I think, 81 points as well. So similar to you. I had the Trippier 1-pointer, which was very disappointing.
So
But apart from that, I think, yeah, the team did pretty well. I mean, no complaints in terms of captaincy or we have the same midfield, I think, apart from KDB, who I didn't have, and I had Richarlison benched. Solanke was the only disappointment other than Trippier, who didn't get a return. So fairly happy. And Arsenal's defense keeps doing well, as you mentioned. I think very happy with that. Every time they got a corner last night, I was ready, almost like it's a penalty. And we didn't get anything yet last night. But yeah, it's I don't see, this is why I'm rethinking the strategy in terms of, if I was to wildcard in 30, let's ignore that 29 exists, right? And that's what a free hit effectively does. I would have Palmer, Saka, Foden, Son, Haaland, Watkins, Solanke, Gabriel, Saliba on a wildcard.
Yeah.
So this is what the issue is. So if I can get Salah somehow by upgrading Richarlison, downgrading a Trippier, and maybe sacrificing a Foden or a Son, because Son's fixtures after 30 are not as great, that's a route that is very viable. That's what I'm looking
at. Did you mention Watkins in your players from wildcard onwards? Would you be keeping Watkins?
I wouldn't. I think Watkins is a sell from game week 31. I know a lot of people won't like to hear that, and maybe they won't sell. But I just think Watkins' fixtures after game week 30, after he plays Wolves at home, he plays Man City away, he plays Arsenal away 2 weeks later. Then he has Chelsea, Brighton. And in the weeks where he has a good fixture, which is game week 34, which is Bournemouth at home, there's other strikers who'll have a double instead, like Isak, Højlund. So I just don't think there is space for Watkins. Will he do well? Of course he'll do well. But I just think there's opportunity to get another striker that could also do well.
That's really interesting that far ahead we can look and go, actually, maybe Watkins won't be in our thoughts, which is, I remember we all took him out for, was it Man City and Arsenal? He scored in both, but they were very low ceiling games and maybe he got sort of 6 pointers. But yeah, it's going to be a tough call, that, because we all have a lot of loyalties towards Watkins now because he's been so consistent of late. Pras, because the last few weeks I just want to ask you a question on kind of wider strategy, because you've been thinking about getting to 29 without using a free hit, and you've bought in players like, I don't know, Aston Villa defenders that play in 29. Are you able to completely separate that decision now with your thinking moving forward? Forget the fact that you've wasted transfers on Aston Villa defenders to then use a free hit in game week 29. Are you able to park that? Because one of my weaknesses I recognize as an FPL manager is something like that. I would look back and go, no, I've got to commit because I already did that. But really, we all know as good FPL managers, you should remain flexible at all times and just play what's in front of you, not look what you've done in the past.
Correct. You have to look at the team now and decide what is the best path. If you made different choices, it was leading up to different probabilities. And the probability was that, Richarlison would be fit, and I would add a Son last week, and I would probably add 2-3 Luton players this week. I would add Tony and Maddison next week, and I'd have a great team. But if I'm changing it, it's not the end of the world, because look, Pau or Konza, I think Pau Torres will become a Bournemouth defender this week, right? And then if I look at my team in game week 30, coming out of the blank, I have Richarlison, who should be fit, home to Luton. I have Konza, who will play home to Wolves. And I will have Bournemouth, who will play home to Everton. In fact, I'll bench both my Arsenal defenders who play Man City. Actually, so it's not a bad thing that I had these guys leading up to 29, and my 30 team will look fine.
Nice. And with your double Arsenal defence, I've seen a few out there looking to maybe sell a Saliba to a Bournemouth defender this week. If you've got Saliba and Gabriel, you've probably had them for a while. You've probably got decent team value in there. Are you conscious of selling players to then bring back on wildcard if you've got big value in, or are you able to go, team value is less important for the run-in, less important for the final 10 weeks, I can soak it up? Or do you go, I need that extra $500,000 on wildcard?
I mean, it's relative, right? Saliba, I think, is more disposable because his goal threat is lower than Gabriel's, and ultimately Raya exists, right? I mean, if you wanted a second Arsenal defender, you go Raya on your wildcard later. So I think people could look to move on Saliba, not because of price reason. I mean, he is more expensive of Gabriel, but also people have more value tied up in Gabriel. He's gone up much more. A lot of people bought him at 4.7, 4.8. So I think one is disposable, especially if you look at Arsenal's fixtures after this week. Well, after Brentford at home. The only other good fixture where I know that they'll keep a clean sheet is game week 31, which is Luton at home, right? That's a good banker, even though Luton are good for a goal. Apart from that, they play Man City away, Brighton away, Wolves away, Aston Villa home, Spurs away in the next 5. So not a lot of clean sheets there. So you could look to sort of offload one after this week.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. It looks like we're all going to be targeting Bournemouth of some way, shape, or form. Dean, we'll talk on Friday who we're buying, but where are you thinking sort of your early signs suggesting you'll go?
I just need Bournemouth. I just need a couple of Bournemouth assets. I mean, I've got 2 free transfers, and I think looking at their fixtures, it's just unavoidable that I've got to go there. Solanke I've already got, obviously, so probably gets the captain's armband, and at least one of the goalkeeper or defender, and then I've just got to decide if I do bring in a midfielder and if I can trust any of them. You know, Sheffield United are that bad. They are that bad that I know like most of their heaviest defeats seem to come at home, which is the most bizarre thing of all.
Yeah, it is.
But I'm still not trusting that they go to, maybe they will, maybe they'll surprise all of us and go to Bournemouth and get something, but there's nothing to suggest that. And so I've got to back Bournemouth across those 2 games, Luton as well. You know, Luton, been really impressed by actually the way they've put up some fight. Their last 5 games, right? You should look at it. Luton have somehow managed to stay in games or get themselves back into games. They've done well. You look at their last 5 games, all defeats. They conceded 54 goals this season in the Premier League. Beyond the bottom 2, that's the most goals in the league. You can't trust them, so you've got to target them.
Yeah, good stuff. Pras, if you're anything like me, and I know you are, you've just had a reminder pop up on your screen that you've got a 2 p.m. meeting, and I have too. So for now, guys, we will say our goodbyes. Special thank you to Pras for joining us
cheers,
today.
mate.
We hope to have you back.
My pleasure. Really enjoyed it.
Distant. Thanks, man. Yeah, we'll have you back, I hope, very soon. FPL Chai waiting in the wings as well. Shout out to everyone in the chat. Thank you for being engaged. We've read all your comments. We'll do way more Q&A on Wednesday and Friday streams. Yep. Do hit that like button and subscribe on your way out. But for now, he's been Praz, he's been Dean, and we've been chasing green arrows.